Today in the garage, we're working on the 68 Dart project car, and we're going to be doing some hood hinge and hood spring upgrades. The hood hinges on this car are very worn and the springs don't move freely. Let me show you what I'm talking about. You can see here one of our problems. As you start to close the hood, the hinge bends way out and it doesn't even start closing. So we need to fix that. Another problem we have right here, you can see, is that as the hood goes up and down, the pivot that the spring is on is completely loose and getting ripped out of the body. So we have to get all this fixed. So we're going to go ahead and pull this hood off, pull the fenders off, and get in here and figure out a solution. Okay, so we pulled off the grill, the hood, and the front fenders so we can work on these hinges. And you'll see now what we're looking at. When they're not supported to the hood, they're just loose and floppy. And you can see this other side is also very loose. And this pin at the bottom is just about ripped out of the body. But we're not going to need that anymore. So let's get these hinges off and cleaned up. Wanted to show you how the factory has these hinges set up. So you have this stamped sheet metal hinge that's on a pivot that's part of the body. And it's held on just by a little spring washer. But there's no bushing. And as they wear, they get super loose. And they also use this coil spring design to lift the hood. And you can see that the springs have to touch each other and they have to slide as this rotates. So if they're not lubricated, they're going to be super tight and that causes a lot of binding. So we have multiple problems here and we're going to do some upgrades. So I got these spring washers off of this stud down here and the stud up here. Now we'll get this off of here. You can see the top stud where the pivot's at. And this is the bottom stud that the spring connected to. And this is why it was all loose. It's completely torn out and wrecked here in the body. That's not going to matter because we're not going to use that with the setup I'm going to. Let me show you what the plan is. We're going to start by grinding out this rivet and taking the old spring assembly off, which we're no longer going to be using. I'm going to find some bushings that fit the upper pin, and we'll weld these bushings to these hinges, so that way the hinges are supported well. And then we're going to put a gas strut like modern vehicles use from the hinge here, down here somewhere on the body, and we'll have to figure out where that spot's going to be. Here's all of the parts I ordered off of Amazon to do this upgrade. Everything was in stock and came quick. I will list all of the part numbers at the end for you. Okay, so this spring assembly here is riveted to the hinge here. So I center punched it in the middle and we're going to drill this out because we're not going to use it in the future. I don't know what size the pin through the middle is, so I just started in the middle with a 1/4 inch, and we'll go up one size at a time until we figure out what size gets this rivet drilled out. All right, now I bumped up to a 5/16 hole, and I'm hopeful this will get the rivet out now. There it is. Got the old spring out. And the head of the rivet, which we're not going to need anymore. So we get the other one done, and we'll get on to the next part. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what we're going to do here to make these pivots on the hinges more stable so the hinges aren't so floppy in there. So you can see right here, the original hinge is about 3/16 of an inch thick. and that would go on this pivot in the body, but as that wears, it's gonna get loose fast. So I got this bushing. It's a 1/2 inch diameter pin, so the inside dimension of the bushing is a 1/2 inch. So when we're done, we're gonna weld this bushing to the hinge. So this will go on as an assembly, and then the load for the hood hinge will be spread out over the entire length of this bushing instead of just the 3/16 thickness of that hinge. So we're gonna get this set up here and get these bushings welded on. So the bushing's gonna get welded on the outside of the hinge at the pivot, but we wanna make sure this bushing is nice and square and pinched down tight. So I'm gonna put a 1/2 inch bolt through the bushing and through the hinge. And then we'll bolt this up here. And then I'll tighten this down. And what this will do is keep that bushing pinch tight against the hinge and nice and square with it. So now we'll get the welder fired up and we're gonna weld this bushing to the hinge down in here. And that will make it so when the hinge hood is going up and down, it's not just pivoting on just the hood hinge, it'll have this nice wide bushing on there, which will make the hinges move much better. Okay, let's get this tack welded on. That should be good. We'll get this test fit on the car. Okay, now I have the bushings tack welded on the hinges. And when I go to put this on the pivot up here, you'll see that it doesn't fit right away. The top of the hinge is hitting the underneath side of the cowl here. And if the hinge was just a regular thickness, it would just wiggle right through there. But now that I have this bushing and it needs to slide on straight, probably 1 inch, we're gonna have to bend this up a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is take my hammer and my punch and just tap this up a little bit right here on the edge, and then that hinge will go right on. There's a little corner of the cowl here. So I took my hammer and punch and gave it like 3 taps. And now you'll see right here is where I had to tap the cowl up. And now it drops right on, and the hinge will rotate just like that with the bushing. And you'll see that it's much more stable. All right, let's get the hood bolted back up and start lining up these gas struts. To install the little ball in the socket, there's a little spring-loaded clip that'll swing all the way around. Once it's undone, take it out. The ball will snap in there past another clip that's inside. And then this clip goes back up and through, and then it wraps around the back side. You can see here, and snaps on. So we'll get the 2 balls in the sockets, and then the lower balls with the mounts installed on the shocks, and then we'll get them on the car and figure out where we need to put these lower mounts. Okay, let's get this gas strut put in there, and I'll show you how we're gonna mark it. So right now we have the hood propped all the way open. The top of the shock with just the ball stud on it will go in the hole where the rivet was on the original spring we drilled out. The bottom is the ball stud with the mount on it, and we're gonna get this lined up, mark out those holes, drill them out, and get them bolted on. And once both sides are done, we'll be able to cycle the hood and see how we did. I pulled this hardware out of inventory to bolt on the lower brackets. I've got 1032 by 1 inch bolts, some split lock washers, regular washers, and nuts. And then I also got some 1/4 inch washers that I'm going to use on the inside of the sheet metal to spread out the load so we don't crack out the sheet metal, because these gas struts are going to provide a lot of force for us. I had to scrape some of this factory glue that they put between these panels here so that way my bracket would sit flat. And I decided I'm not going to mark the holes. We have the hood all the way up, and I'm just going to drill right in place, 3/16 of an inch. I'm going to get those two bolted up, and then I'll come back and drill the other two holes here. Okay, we got the two bolts tightened up. I'm going to drill out this hole, and I'm going to have to take the end of the strut off so I can drill the top hole there. Okay, we'll get that one bolted up and get the strut off. Okay, it's all bolted up and sitting here. I did close the hood, and the little brackets on the bottom kind of twisted where the ball's at. So I am going to clean it up and weld the bracket to the frame of the car, the body of the car here, make it stronger. So I get that done and then we'll try it out. All right, I got this all cleaned up to bare metal here. I'm gonna start welding it on. That should be good. We'll go ahead and hit the other side and give it a try. The struts are installed and there's only one thing left to do. Originally there was like a press-on star washer at the top that held the hood hinge onto the stud. But now that we have a bushing there to spread out the load, I'm going to drill and tap the end of this stud and put a small washer on there that'll keep the hood hinge from sliding off the pivot. Once that's done, we'll do a final test on this and I'll let you know how it worked out. Okay, everything's installed. We got our final update on the hood hinges and the new gas strut rods. Let's see how we do here. You can see immediately there's like no side-to-side play. And it closes smooth like butter. And then you let it go. Overall, I'm really happy with how this came out. The only disappointing thing was those lower brackets weren't strong enough. But welding them to the cowl there worked out perfect. I'm going to pull these hinges off and get them primered up and on to the next thing. Unfortunately, new hood hinges are not available for these A-body Mopars, so you have to work with what you have. By adding the bushings to the pivots, it made them travel very smooth and stable. And also by getting rid of the original coil spring design and going with modern gas struts, made it open and close effortlessly with no binding. This was a great upgrade for our car, and I highly recommend it if you're having issues with your A-body hood hinges and springs. The one thing I will say is the fender will probably have to come off of the car to make these modifications. Thanks for watching.